Like every video. Don't forget to hit like. We want to get this clip to 10,000 likes. Subscribe to the channel if this is your first time. Let's begin. The Justice Alliance, a team of subheroes containing the strongest heroes. Their job is to fight crime and stop villains. Their power and deeds made them famous figures. All the children loved them, including Johnny, who watched the hero news show daily, but his mother would turn off the TV and tell him to go to bed. He'd go up annoyed with his mom and the house. He'd sit in his room full of pictures and figures of all the heroes he loved. She'd come in an hour later and tell him to sleep, turning off the light. She'd leave and find the light back on. So she'd go in and turn it off. She'd leave, and the light would come on again. He'd say, "I swear I didn't do anything." The bulb would turn off and on by itself, then suddenly explode. The power in the whole house cuts out. He looks at the bulb and sees electricity coming from it. He looks at a toy, and without touching it, it turns on. What's happening? He looks out the window at a power pole, and with a look it turns on. With a look it turns off. What is this? I have a superpower. He plays with the city's electricity until he burns out the house. In the morning, he goes to school and meets his friend Tom. He says, "I discovered my true power." Crossing the street, he changes the traffic lights. On the street, a blonde boy immediately bullies them. He says to Tom, "Watch what happens." He focuses on the radio next to them and makes it explode. His friend says, "You have a legendary power." He says, Not sure. All I know is, electrical energy comes from my body." His friend says then, "Your power definitely awakened too. Someone in your family must have a power." Johnny says, "Definitely not my mom. Maybe my dad, especially since I don't know who he is." They go to the amusement park. He touches a ride and makes it play without paying. Tom says, "If this power you could join the Justice Alliance, but first you need a heroic name." Johnny says, "That's a cool idea. What do you think of the Electric Boy?" And indeed, from the next day he starts designing a hero costume, clothes that suggest electricity. Honestly, they look legendary. Tom says, "So we chose the name and costume, let's go." But controlling the power needs training. They train together to increase his control. Tom says, "I think you might have a magnetic field and use it to fly." He tries, and on the second try, he can actually fly in the air. He says, "Great work, done. Now we just need to find a crime and catch the villain." They wait in the street, but there's no crime. They live in a small town where everyone knows each other, which is why there aren't even any heroes in town. Tom says, You go to a place full of kids and announce yourself, and there's no place kids gather better than the swimming pool." The next day he takes his hero clothes and flies into the air. He appears in front of all the kids and says, "I'm the town's new hero. My name is the Electric Boy." All the kids are happy, but the boy who bullies them says, "I saw you before. Isn't that Johnny from our school? I know him and know where he lives." Johnny gets nervous and loses concentration. His power goes out of control, and he falls into the water. Suddenly, an electric charge comes from his body and spreads through the whole pool. Everyone there gets an electric shock that kills them. The rest see what happened and run out into the street. So cars swerve off the road and crash into shops. A truck hits a gas station and causes a giant explosion. The quiet town is no longer quiet after the hero's arrival. A very, very failed debut. Johnny says to Tom, "I swear, I didn't mean to." He says, "I know. But what do we do about the people now?" Suddenly, the machine next to them turns on and spits out money. Johnny says, "Believe it or not, I have a cool idea. I figured out how to use my power." And after 10 years, in Supermax Prison, known as the strongest prison in the world, a maximum security prison for all superpowered villains, every prisoner wears a restraint that stops them from using their power, and the guards can use it to paralyze them. The prisoner, Johnny the Bolt. His release order has arrived. This is Johnny after growing up 20 years. He was arrested while stealing and sentenced to 8 months. They remove the restraint before he leaves. As he exits, he sees plaques and food and drinks inside the place. A guard says, "These are a gift from Mr. Matz. He was the world's strongest villain, nicknamed the Scoundrel. But now he runs a charity and gives gifts to the prison." This, of course, after everyone learned He retired from villainy and became an honest businessman. Oni exits and finds his girlfriend Cassie waiting. She takes him in the car, and they go home. But strangely, he finds his friends waiting, coming to celebrate his release from prison. Alcohol and women all night. At the same time, the villains in prison were celebrating in honor of Mr. Metz. One says, "I heard he was strong when he was young." The second replies, "He's still strong. Haven't you heard about the villain Danny? That guy was an old-school criminal. His last job was stealing $5 million from Mr. Metz. He ran off with the money and disappeared. Years later, he appeared in Miami with his wife and family, all thanks to the money he stole from Metz. But with his appearance, everything changed in one day. His old friends had exploded. Then his girlfriend. Then his assistant. Then his partner. Then his mother and brother. The buildings. Doorman employees in his company, all their heads exploded. He ran with his wife after 241 people he knew died. They went to the forest to hide. But his wife got a headache, and her head exploded in front of him. Matz appeared behind him. Danny says, kill me too. But Matz said, no, what you've reached is enough. That's his method, torturing his opponents psychologically, until they reach suicide. But that was back then. Now rumors say he founded an organization called He Network that controls a large number of criminals. But it's just rumors, there's no evidence. Johnny talks with his friends. One named Sakya says things have changed a lot since you were in prison. We came to celebrate your release and want to know how you'll continue in life. You're a man with no job, Johnny says. What mission? The mission I came for. Sakya shows him a crazy mission. 10 jewelry stores in a small area. Well, hit them on bikes and rob them, but with one condition. The mission must finish in 10 minutes. If that happens, the police won't know where to go and we can finish without losses. Also, that area is known for low crime, so we probably won't find any subters stopping us. Johnny says, what an awesome plan. Who made it? Sakya says, me, of course, who else would make plans? Cassie enters and says, enough, you have work tomorrow. She gives them an order to leave the house, and indeed the three carry it out. Seems she has a psychic power and controls people. Cassie says to him, are you really going to take part in this mission? He says, yeah, of course. The plan is excellent. What do you think about joining us? Your power would be very useful. She says, impossible, I won't get into dangerous missions like this, especially when you know who made the plan. The network is a secret organization for supervillains. It makes plans and spreads them to all villains. Whoever executes the plan and succeeds must pay 30% of the money they stole. They have no responsibility. If the villain gets caught, that's on him. And if he succeeds in the mission, they take 30%. That's why I don't want to get involved with them. And you should stay away too. We can look for work and continue our lives together. He says, fine, Convinced by your opinion, I'll tell them I refuse the mission, and after 6 hours, he sets off with the team at the first store. They stop the alarm devices and steal everything inside. They go to the second store, but suddenly the alarm goes off. How? It went off before we even entered. Another gang took the plan and tried to rob the store. They take the bikes and flee the area. But the police launch after them in huge numbers, literally surrounding them from everywhere, trying to block the road. But Johnny in a moment uses his power, stops all the cars, and makes them crash into each other. They find more police waiting, so his friend known as the transporter uses his power and instantly transports them to the next street. From his name he can use instant teleportation. With all this, police channels start broadcasting what's happening. Cassie sees the news on TV. The police are asking for help from the heroes, and one was actually close to the city and on his way to help, coming by transportation, which is 4 planes carrying him. The hero known as Mountain Man, a giant with legendary strength, throws cars at them to slow them down. They try to outrun him with speed but has faster. Johnny goes back to him and gives him an electric shock to make him fall. But my goodness, like a mule has not affected. Sakya gives him a hit that freezes half his face. Their fourth friend, named Bad Luck, uses his power, the power of bad luck, and gives him a luck strike. Suddenly, planes start landing on his head. Any plane passing over the city stops and lands on his head. The giant tumbles onto the building next to him and loses consciousness. They manage to defeat the first hero and continue their escape journey. Their goal is to reach the bridge, and there a helicopter they arranged is waiting. But suddenly Rubber Man appears behind them, a new hero who only appeared 8 months ago. He can turn himself into a ball of rubber, and in ball form he's not just fast, but his strikes are deadly. He comes down on the transporter's bike with a strike that splits it in half. The transporter at the last moment teleports himself. He continues after them, destroying the city, not caring about people. The important thing is catching the criminals. Sakya makes a road of ice, but he still continues after them. Johnny gives him an electric shock, but it didn't affect him much. It's known that rubber insulates electricity. Bad luck gives him a bad luck strike. So iron poles from the construction area fall on the place. They dodge them one after another. So Johnny says to Sakya, "Attack me." He executes the order, and then the transporter teleports the attack he makes. Barriers in front of Rubber Man that freeze his hand. So Johnny gives him an electric shock to take him down, and Sakya steps on his leg with the bike and breaks it. That break needs plates and screws. They manage to defeat 2 heroes. Finally they reach the bridge and they have minutes left to escape by helicopter, but suddenly they are teleported and find themselves back in the city again. This time a hero known among people as Praetorian is standing waiting for them. Praetorian is a hero with a legendary power. A strong power even among heroes because it's the power of multiplicity. He can use 200 powers, and he himself doesn't know which power he'll use. One of the powers he used was instant teleportation, which brought them in front of him. He uses a new power, which is duplication. He makes 3 copies of himself to face the 4-4 against 4. But like this, each copy can use a different power. The group splits up to escape. Sakya enters the forest and Praetorian is after him. He gives him a huge ice strike, so he uses a new power he just got, which is fire. He blocks the ice strike and melts it. In a moment he comes in front of him and gives him a strike that throws him in the air. He flies after him to slam him into the ground. Praetorian is known to be a butcher who doesn't spare his opponents. He comes down on him and gives him 30 strikes, sticking his head in the ground. The second copy immediately attacks Bad Luck. He tries to use Bad Luck on him, but he reflects it back with a reflection power. He turns the Bad Luck back on Bad Luck suddenly. He finds the sky raining catfish, and after that a shark falls on him and swallows him. The transporter and Johnny were trying to escape, but he appears in front of them too. He uses instant teleportation. He gives the transporter a strike that sends him flying. A second strike breaks the car with him. Only Johnny is left. He gives him a strike that knocks him down. Johnny says, "I won't be arrested again." He uses his power and turns on all the car headlights, and with speed, he runs away. No, he didn't escape. All the copies appeared in front of him, and after his friends were defeated, he says, "Captain 4 against 1 isn't fair." Praetorian says, "Kid, don't upset yourself now, it's 1-on-1. He gets close to him and says, "Is this your first crime or have you been in prison before?" Johnny says, "None of your business." He teleports behind him and says, "Answer." Johnny says, "I was in prison and just got out yesterday." He says, "Yesterday, and you come to steal. Today I think I'd feel guilty sending you back to prison again." "Fine. I decided to let you go this time. It'll give you a second chance to live a righteous life. And this goes for your friends too. This time is the last chance. I don't want to see your faces again." And immediately he flies into the sky. The 4 don't understand what happened, but everything becomes clear when Cassie stops in front of Johnny, takes him in the car, and drives off. He says, "No, you controlled him and made him let us go." Sakya says, "Your power is legendary. If you joined us, no one could stand against us. Not even Praetorian." Cassie says to him, "Oh, of course not. Praetorian uses 200 powers. Next time he might have a power that can counter mine." Praetorian returns to the Justice Alliance headquarters. Not knowing or understanding why he let them go, Johnny returns with Cassie, who says, "Thanks to you, we managed to complete the mission." Cassie says, "But life can't continue like this. I can't continue a relationship with someone who might go to prison at any moment, and more importantly, you lied to me yesterday and went stealing." Johnny says, "Then what should I do?" What job lets us continue together? She says you're a supervillain, your power is strong and you could use it, but more importantly, use it in a way that doesn't send you back to prison. I have one mission, an important mission, with a huge prize. With it we can secure our lives and stay away from crime and evil forever. He says, and where is this mission? Cassie says, do you know the Heat? The Heat is a legendary villain, known in the 70s for his many crimes. He'd enter a bank or store and steal everything with the power of fire, then leave without ever getting caught. Throughout his history he was never arrested, not once, and he never killed a person in his life. Every time he'd disappear, and people said he died or was caught, he'd return with a new crime as if saying, I'm still here. That man is my teacher. He taught me how to use my power and how to steal. I heard he's gathering a team for a big operation, and the client this time is from outside the country. The mission's reward is $50 million, he told me. There's an empty spot on the team, so I want you to join us. And on one of the beaches, a disguised man uses his power to pull a car key. He goes to the garage to steal it, but a hero named the Wrestler appears in front of him and literally steps on his face. In one of the casino halls, two are fighting over the game. One slams the other on the table. The man takes out a cleaver and cuts off his fingers. The two start fighting, but in the middle of it they steal the money, without anyone noticing, and cut the action. A phone call reaches them. The same call reaches many people, and Cassie's reaches the Heat, an old man who seems kind, but as we said, he was one of the most famous criminals. He opened a laundromat to hide his criminal activities. Cassie introduces Johnny to him, and the man takes them on a tour of the laundromat. He sees old crimes there, news about the Heat, who was a member of one of the strongest villain gangs in history. But over time, the gang disbanded, and each went their own way. Two guns are hanging on the wall. These are the Heat's fire guns. The fire coming from them can melt a money vault, but that means he doesn't have special powers. The Heat says to be a villain you have to be smart. It's all about planning how to be at the crime scene at the right time. The strangest thing is that the legend turned out to be a lie. The Heat was arrested more than once, but they didn't know this was the Heat. He takes them to a meeting room where a group of criminals is waiting without even introducing them to each other. He says, well, start the mission immediately. You know the power of the Justice Alliance and how heroes are everywhere in the city. That's why the network was established. An organization of villains aiming to control villains and keep them in check. In return, they take a cut before any crime happens in the city. You have to pay them, and if you don't, you'll be punished. One of them, named Josh, says, so that's why you chose a group of obscure villains. All those present have no known crimes. And surely the network doesn't even know they exist. Johnny says, who's obscure? If you want to know my power, I can show you. He releases a huge electric charge that cuts the power to the entire city. He tries to attack him, but the attack passes through him. The man passes through his body and then pins him to the wall. Let me introduce myself. My name is Josh, known as the Ghost. Josh is an obscure criminal who was imprisoned for one of his thefts. The villains were going to mess with him in prison, but the Heat helped him there and provided him protection throughout his sentence. Since then, Josh respects the Heat. The Heat diffuses the situation between them and says, we need your power. The operation is divided into two parts, and we can't start the second until we finish the first. The second part is the main one, but the first part is dangerous. The first mission is to rescue a villain from the police. This man's role is very important in the second part, and this villain's name is TK. He was trying to rob a warehouse, but the hero, the Wrestler, stopped him and arrested him. TK can control metal, but against the Wrestler's insane strength, he couldn't hold out right now. He's on his way to prison and will be transported by military plane. We have to free him before he gets there. They ask, then, what's the second part of the mission? He says, you won't know until we finish the first part. But don't worry, everything we need to finish. The mission is available. Our client is covering all expenses and will give us $50 million when we successfully complete the mission. The client lives in Romania and is eagerly awaiting our success. Our client is foreign, and we are obscure villains, so, likely, the network won't know anything about the matter, and thus we won't need to pay the commission. And indeed, From the next day, the police begin the transfer of the villain, TK Hez, restrained with devices that prevent him from using his power. The hero, the wrestler, says to them, "I'm going to meet the prison warden, so I'll take part in securing the transfer." He rides on top of the plane, and the journey begins at this time. The Heat goes to an airport to rent a plane, but the employee says he must sign papers from the manager. First, Johnny enters on them and says, "Disaster. A man in the plane. He hit him and turned him into ground meat." They go out and find a man actually dead. The two take advantage of the chaos to steal a plane after knocking the captain unconscious. They bring the man who was ground up or his remains. This man's name is Rudy, and he has regeneration power. His brother is Sammy, and he also has the same power. The Heat and Johnny pilot the plane and start the journey. Cassie at this time was on a boat off the shores of America. Is she on vacation or what? The prison plane has 4 hours to reach the prison, but our plane got close to them. Johnny uses his power to cut their communication. Sammy opens the plane and jumps from it. He lands on the prison plane, and his body is destroyed. But immediately Rudy jumps after him and hits the wrestler with an axe and throws him from the plane. He says to them, "The mission is over, you can come down now." So the ghost jumps after them and uses his power to infiltrate inside the plane. The soldiers immediately aim at him, but he uses his power to dodge on top of the plane. The wrestler returns and hits Rudy, but he uses a rope to come back at him again. The wrestler is considered the strongest hero in the Justice Alliance. He hits Rudy with a strike that pins him and rains down, hits on him until he breaks his teeth. The wrestler says, "Yours is one of the powers I hate the most." This time the ghost pulls out a gun and gives each soldier a bullet, a tranquilizer bullet that knocks them unconscious. He appears behind the captain and says, "Do you have a weapon?" The captain says, "No." He says, "Fine, continue on your way." And he goes back to TK and tries to free him. Johnny uses his power to slow the plane's movement. Rudy was still fighting the wrestler. Hez not fighting, Hez getting beaten. All this to give time to the others, and the ghost can't free TK because the device on him has a password. He tries to get it from the guards, but they refuseth. The wrestler says to Rudy, "I'll finish you, then go to the others." Rudy puts his leg in the engine to blind it with blood. But the wrestler didn't stop. He tears off his arm. A new arm grows quickly. He grabs him and jumps with him from the plane. The two fall into the sea, and on the way he gets beaten, as usual. Suddenly the wrestler finds himself in the water, and in front of him is a mermaid who says, "Need you to save the kingdom of Atlantis." He says, "I'm a hero, and my goal is to help everyone." Rudy gets onto Cassie's boat. She saved him after saving Sammy, and the wrestler is next to them unconscious. Cassie used her power on him to put him in a long dream. The plane is close to the prison, and the ghost can't figure out the password. Johnny says there's only one solution. He uses all his power and directs the plane to the ground. "If we can't free it, we must destroy it." The ghost says to the guards, "If you don't help me, you'll die." Suddenly the plane stops before crashing at the last moment. The guard freed TK, who immediately used his power to lift the plane and gives the guard a strike that knocks him out. We succeeded in the first part of the plan. They managed to save TK without losses. The Heat takes them to a hotel in the middle of the city. He says one more member will join us, and as soon as he arrives, he'll tell you about the mission. They say, "Then tell us, where is the mission location?" He says, "You're looking at it." They look around and say, "A cafe. You want us to rob it, or what?" Cassie, the only one who noticed, says, "You must be joking. If you mean this place, then you're crazy." Johnny looks out the window, and she says, "The building in front of us is the Justice Alliance headquarters. That's the mission location." Everyone says, "Hat nonsense is this, we're dead." He says, "Wait, do you know the hero Brainwave, a famous hero whose power is reading minds? I think Hez reading our minds right now, and is on his way to us with the other heroes." "So you brought us here to get us arrested," he says. "True, but that would have happened if I weren't here. Brainwave isn't at the headquarters. He got an invitation to attend a conference in China, and will stay there for a week. I planned everything. That's why I want you to listen to the plan. And as I said, the reward is $50 million, and that's for robbing the Justice Alliance and reaching the mask of Count Orlok." Count Orlok was the strongest villain of the 20th century. With his mask, he could use dozens of powers. Money would steal itself without him touching it, but the alliance of heroes stood against him. His strongest members united to face him, and all they could do was take the mask from him. Since then it's been kept in a vault at the Justice Alliance headquarters, but this mask represented half of Count Orlok's power, and since then has been hiding in Romania, away from the heroes. Whoa. I heard Brainwave was leaving the country. I traveled to Romania to present the plan to him and he agreed. Cassie says even if he left, the Justice Alliance has strong heroes who could defeat Count Orlok. How will we stand against them? He says, I have a plan, and the final member will be the cornerstone of it. Outside the place, everyone was looking at a man walking in the street. It's raining everywhere except where he is because he can control the weather. So the team is complete with the arrival of the final member named Forecast. At this time, guards are standing by, receiving the arrival of Mr. Matt's leader of the network organization, Hez, visiting the maximum security prison to pay the monthly share of donations. More importantly, Hez holding a party attended by all the famous villains in the country. He announces in it that Hez finally retiring Hell, leave the country and settle in an isolated place, and the network will be left to his assistant named the Scorpion. Hell manage the organization after him, and it will continue with the same rules and same percentage as Hez leaving as security guards. Phone rings. The man takes out the phone in front of Mr. Matz, and suddenly his head explodes. All this because the phone rang. Each member of the team rests a bit to prepare for tomorrow's mission, except Forecast and TK. They were going by train on a 9-hour journey to reach the state of Atlanta. The heroes arrive at the Justice Alliance headquarters, amid cheers from the crowd. All the strong heroes are at the headquarters, including Praetorian, who gained great fame recently in Atlanta. A couple visiting graves suddenly find an earthquake. Skeletal remains come out from underground, the dead come out of their graves and start moving. And from among the corpses, the corpse of the necromancer. Comes out an old villain who lost to the heroes and died. Looks like Hez back and is leading an army of zombies. The army rides bikes and heads to invade the city. The news reaches the heroes who immediately move to save the city. Among them is a hero named the YouTuber, Hez, the one who defeated the necromancer 9 years ago. Johnny and the others take advantage of the situation and enter the Justice Alliance headquarters, entering like the rest of the people to see the hero museum. Johnny immediately disables the electricity and uses his power to control the cameras. Cassie controls people so they don't feel the group entered, meaning they'll enter and leave without anyone seeing them. At this time, zombies are taking over the city as if where playing Zerbas, vs Plants. Forecast uses his power to change the weather as if the necromancer did it. Their plan is going as they wanted, and the heroes are on their way to the city. Johnny and the others reach the hero exhibit, the place containing all the treasures the heroes collected and displayed to the public, and indeed they find the mask. So Josh uses his power to pull it. But what they didn't know is that Praetorian was still at the headquarters. He had a stomach ache and went to the bathroom at the time the news of the attack on the city reached the heroes, so they all went, except him. And today he has a new power, which is super hearing. He hears the conversation between the Heat and the other members, so immediately he rides the elevator and goes up to the hero exhibit. He finds the mask walking by itself, so he uses a power and gives it a strike that sticks Josh to the wall and destroys the mask. Praetorian says, fools, did you really think we'd leave the real mask in front of everyone? Everything in front of you are fake copies of the original pieces. The real ones are now in a secure underground storage. Josh, as soon as he hears the sentence, uses his power and dives underground to reach the storage. Praetorian uses his power to attack the other members. Cassie tries to control him, but he resists and gives her a strike that knocks her out for minutes. He says, you're a weak group and I alone can stop you. He uses a water power on them, so Johnny protects her with his body. Their luck that it was a weak power, so they take advantage of the situation and run away. He uses a new power and throws rocks at them. He draws a new card with a new power, I-beams that melt everything in front of them, even the crowd that was in the place. Sammy comes from behind to gouge his eye, but his fingers are the ones that break. He gained a new power, which is hardness. He grabs him and throws him at Johnny. Rudy attacks him, so he rains down hits on him and continues after Johnny. The Heat, at the time the ghost reached the vault, enters the place, but alarm devices go off. The zombies were taking over the city and attacking the people present. So sudden quick attacks, the heroes arrived to help. 5 heroes came to control the situation, but the number of zombies is huge. The 6th hero arrives, the wrestler. With one strike, he sends a whole row of zombies flying. The YouTuber says, we have to get rid of the source, which is the necromancer. The YouTuber goes to him and says, like I killed you 9 years ago, I'll kill you and send you back to your Gravit K. And Forecast were standing watching what was happening, but suddenly they find the wrestler in front of them. He says, this place is dangerous, you must get out quickly. But wait, I haven't seen you before. TK says, of course not. You'll see a trivial person like me where? And he walks quickly away from him. Praetorian breaks the building to reach Johnny and the others. The ghost finally managed to reach the mask by chance. Johnny uses electricity to activate the fire suppression system and distract Praetorian. The ghost comes to them with the mask. The Heat says, use the mask quickly, so we can escape, put it on, and say the password, he said. What password? The Heat says, I don't know. The ghost looks at the mask and finds the password written inside. Praetorian is about to use a power, so the ghost puts on the mask and says, I want to go to a safe place. The Heat says, take us to the Black Rock, and immediately the team disappears them. TK and Forecast. They are transported to the place. They said the YouTuber attacks the necromancer with all his power and breaks the ground with him. The man had already turned into a corpse after the two moved away from the place, and after that all the zombies stop moving. Johnny and the others find themselves in a cafe. Roughly, Cassie says, where are we? The Heat says, we're at the Black Rock, an area in Romania. This is where Count Orlok lives, and this is from the time he lost the mask. In his fight against the heroes, the Heat says, I have a long history with Count Orlok. The Heat, Count Orlok and Mr. Mats. The three of us were among the strongest villains in the world. The Alliance of Heroes was created to stop us, so we moved our operations to Europe to stay away from them. But there were many problems between Mr. Mats and Count Orlok. The two didn't get along. But they continued the period and created the Black Rock, a place containing the strongest villains, and from here the strongest theft operations were launched. But with time they started losing members until Mr. Mats left, and after him the Heat. The only one who remained was Count Orlok. And that was 30 years ago. Count Orlok was watching what was happening hanging from the ceiling. The door knocks, and suddenly they find Praetorian in front of them. He uses his power to paralyze everyone. He says, unfortunately, my new power is super freezing. You won't be able to move, not even you can use your power to control me. After that Mr. Mats enters. Praetorian says, I feel you're surprised. I'm a superhero, but at the same time I work with the network. Mr. Mats says, sad you carried out an operation without paying the network's percentage. If I didn't know the name BlackRock, I wouldn't have been able to reach you. But what happened won't go unpunished. Instead of our 30% share, well, take 100%. Count Orlok comes down from the ceiling and says, welcome. Sorry, I was sleeping on the ceiling. I believe you finished the mission, so as I promised, here are the 50 million your reward. He looks back and finds Mr. Mats. Mats says, I've always hated you. And suddenly his head explodes. I'm satisfied with the money, and don't want to see you in a place near me. And he takes the money and leaves. Praetorian before leaving says, if anyone finds out about my connection to the network, I'll track each one of you and kill you. And all the channels after that talk about Praetorian's achievement that he managed to return the mask that was stolen from the Justice Alliance headquarters. And Johnny and the others are psychologically destroyed. They failed after all that happened. The mission they expected to be the last failed. The ghost says, I'm leaving and don't want to work with you again. And after that, one after the other leaves. Cassie is tired of life. So Johnny, in the middle of the street, proposes to her. He says, what do you think about staying away from crime and continuing our lives together? Well, I'll continue in a normal, respectable life away from villains. Cassie, of course, agrees, and he sets a wedding date. And on the night before the wedding, his friends come in and say, don't you want to do one last mission? You're broke and about to get married. How will you spend in the coming days? One last mission will get you an amount to live on until you start a project. He agrees to their idea and robs all the money machines in the street with his friends. The police chase them, so they flee from the subway station. But Praetorian arrived to help the police. He enters the subway, which was actually moving. But Praetorian today has the ghost power. He enters the subway and grabs them. Johnny tries to escape from his hand, runs from the place, and exits the station. At that time he finds the wrestler who gives him a strike that breaks his face. The gang was arrested. Johnny is sentenced to 5 years in prison. Cassie was waiting for Johnny in her wedding dress, but he didn't come, nor will he come for 5 years. He went back to crime after her. So she leaves the hall, burns the wedding dress, and decides to continue her life alone. And after 5 years, news spreads everywhere. Praetorian was acquitted in 300 cases. They all accused him of exploiting his position and partnering with villains. True, he was acquitted, but his reputation as a hero was destroyed and he was dismissed from the Alliance of Heroes. The problem was, the media was accusing the wrestler of cooperating with him because they were friends and the closest people to each other. In a gambling den, the Heat was betting the strange Thing is, he won all the bets, he entered the places. Manager is the Scorpion head of the network organization, who took over after Mr. Matz. The Scorpion says Hez, definitely using a prediction power, searched the place for any suspicious person, and, indeed, in the garage, there was a man communicating with him. Security goes there and catches him and also brings the heat. The Scorpion says the heat, the man of the strong trick, ends with stupid tricks like this. Using someone who sees the future for 30 seconds. Unfortunately, your level has dropped. And he hits the man with the box on his head and kills him. He says to the heat, what do you think? Want to end up like him, or shall I give you a chance? I decided to give you a chance. You have 1 month from now to bring me $100 million. If you don't bring them, I'll break your head. Johnny, after getting out of prison, goes to Cassie. He says, are you still mad at me? It wasn't 5 years, it passed. She says, 5 years? You destroyed my future. You broke your promise and left me to do a stupid crime with your friends. Get out. I don't want to see your face again. Suddenly the heat enters and says, help me, I need your help. They take him home to treat his wounds, and he tells them everything that happened, that he must collect $100 million within a month. Cassie says, what nonsense is this? How do you think of cheating in a place ruled by the Scorpion leader of the network? Johnny says, I have a plan to collect $100 million. I learned a lot of information in prison, she says. I don't want to know anything from you. Get out. Because I can't stand seeing your face, I decided to make him a fake passport and let him escape the country. Johnny didn't give up and goes to Josh, who now has a big contracting company, and presents the plan to him. After that he goes to TK, who now works in cargo transport, just a daily worker, and is not allowed to use his power forecast. Who sells umbrellas on the street. Rudy and Sammy, who are still the same, entering bets and underground fights. Cassie at this time goes to an underground company to make a passport for the heat. Upon returning, she finds Johnny gathering all the members after convincing them with his idea. In front of this whole group, she says, fine. He'll listen to the plan. After that, he decides to go to a restaurant. Everyone is standing filming what's happening, waiting for someone who invited him to lunch. The man arrives and says, I was waiting for you. The famous hero, the wrestler. Illegal relationships. Yes, I heard a lot about you in prison. If you do anything, my friends will publish the pictures online and your life will be ruined. I want you to help me in a theft operation. But don't worry, you'll like this operation. An operation on one of the Japanese islands. A businessman moved there and opened a big casino, and there's a vault containing all the wealth he collected in his life. This man is Mr. Matz, and more importantly, his assistant is Praetorian, your old friend who ruined the hero's reputation. You surely want revenge on him. Mr. Matz used his wealth to make a giant casino that attracts businessmen from all over the world, and more importantly, there are no scepters. There, the entire island has only Mr. Matz and Praetorian. The wrestler says, if we're taking revenge on Praetorian, then I agree. But on condition you delete all the pictures after the mission ends. The plan is complete, and all members agreed to it. Mr. Matz at this time was on the island practicing yoga daily to calm himself, because from the time he arrived on the island, he decided not to use his power and keep his nerves calm, and a priest is responsible for training him in relaxation. Johnny says to them, well, travel to the island, but in different ways. Johnny and Cassie will travel by plane with 2 suitcases. Josh will ride with them but invisible, so no one notices his presence. The 2 suitcases contain Sammy and Rudy after they cut up their bodies. The 3 others will come by boat. Finally, the wrestler who decided to come by swimming in the sea. So they reach the island without anyone noticing them, and they start the second part of the plan. Cassie and Rudy get ready to meet Mr. Matz. Rudy is disguised as a physics professor, and Cassie is his assistant. They enter the place, which has scanners and power implements. It's impossible to use your power in this place. They present to him a project to design a time machine. They say, using it you can become the strongest villain in history. He says, I'm sorry, I don't need it. I'm actually the strongest villain in history. And he refuses the project and says interview is over. They go out and they see the entrances and exits. At this time the rest of the team entered the casino and wander around exploring the place. At night they gather and draw a map of the place. Mr. Matz's palace is connected to the casino and connected to the cave where he practices yoga. The money vault is in the lower floor. The vault is a magic suitcase. Inside it is infinite space. It contains all the money and treasures he collected in his life. But reaching there is nearly impossible. There are sensors, power implements, and protection devices, so the only solution is disabling The security systems. Cassie says there are 2 places for the security systems. Finally, all arrangements are done and the mission will start tomorrow. Johnny meets Cassie at night and says, his is my last promise to you. Tomorrow will be the last mission, and after that we'll spend the rest of our lives together. I'll never lie to you again. Ever. He wakes up from sleep and finds her not there. He calls her and finds her at the airport. She says, I finished part of the mission, so I'll return before anything happens. So they start the plan without her and split into 2 teams. The first team reaches the control room and subdues all the guards. They stop the surveillance cameras and disable the security system. The second team heads to the vault location, which has the second security system. But suddenly, they find in front of them a team of ninjas. Mr. Matz doesn't just rely on protection systems. He also hired teams to protect the place. And the second team also meets defense mechanisms and teams. The 2 teams' goal is to reach the second control room to stop the protection devices, so they can use their powers. The Heat uses his guns to defend the team, and Rudy defends the second team with his body. He allows the Ghost to stop the security system. And finally he succeeds in the mission. Rudy and Sammy regenerate themselves and face the ninjas at the airport. Cassie books a plane ticket, but suddenly Praetorian appears behind her and says, any suspicious move and I'll kill you. I never forget you. Mr. Matz appears and says, I'm not stupid. Your disguise can't fool me. He takes her to the palace to start interrogating her, and injects her with a truth serum that forces the person to tell the truth. At this time the team reached the last corridor. A corridor covered with laser beams that cut anything that touches them. The switch to turn them off is at the end of the tunnel. Rudy and Sammy race to get there. So the beams cut Sammy. Rudy continues, and he gets cut too. He grows new parts and continues. They see who will reach first. A very disgusting plan because it's based on dissecting the 2 bodies. In reality, it never would have succeeded without them. Sammy is the one who wins the race and stops the beams. They enter the vault and find the suitcase, and as soon as they open it, they are shocked by the amount of treasures stored inside it. Finally, they completed the mission successfully. At this time Matz asks Cassie, what brought you to the island? She says, definitely to steal. At the time you're standing here, my friends are stealing all your wealth. He opens the surveillance cameras and finds all the guards unconscious. He sees the group in the vault. He says to Praetorian quickly, go, stop them. Praetorian immediately uses instant teleportation and arrives in front of them. Johnny says, I won't fight you. I brought someone who will stop you. The wrestler takes out a cigar and smokes it. I'll watch you while you fight. And indeed Praetorian hits them one after the other, breaking their bones, and the wrestler stands enjoying the show. Mr. Matz uses his power to explode Cassie's head. His power is mental just like Cassie's. Exactly, and he uses it to explode his opponent's heads, but Cassie resists him with her power and tries to stop him. A mental battle between the 2. Praetorian finishes off the whole group. So the wrestler says, my turn came to settle my account with you. People like you, who ruined the hero's reputation. Praetorian directs a strike at him, but he blocks it easily and reveals himself, letting him know this is the wrestler. He says, I'm sorry, I swear it was a mistake. He directs many strikes at him, so he blocks them and gives him one strike that breaks the wall with him. Praetorian comes back at him again with multiple strikes. The wrestler grabs his hand and says, after your betrayal, you don't deserve to live. And with a strike, he breaks the ground with him, and a final strike breaks his hand. He says, that's my part done. I don't think he'll be able to move again. Otz uses all his power and directs it at Cassie, and suddenly her head explodes. He says, you're the strongest opponent I've ever faced. He communicates with Praetorian, but with no reply. The guards communicate with him and say, return to the palace quickly. Praetorian lost the battle, he says. The palace, but at the palace, he focuses on the place. What is this? Where am I? And he appears in front of the corpse of the servant, whose head he exploded. Cassie played them like a ball. She controlled them from the airport, and made them see what she wanted. She put them in a place far from the palace to allow the others to finish the mission, and the team succeeded in exiting the island safely, and each one took his share from the mission. The Heat used his share in bets as usual. TK opened a shop with his wife, and traveled to Italy. Forecast invested his money in space exploration projects. Josh expanded his construction business, and his company became one of the strongest companies. The strange thing is Rudy liked the role, and invested his money in discovering the time machine. But his brother Sammy was spending the money on alcohol and women. The wrestler went to the heroes and confessed his secret relationships, and the Heroes forgave him and gave him a new chance, and Johnny had set a trap for the Scorpion. 12 news reports everywhere that the Heat paid $100 million to the Scorpion. And Mr. Matz heard the news returned to the Scorpion and said, "You sent this group to steal my money. After I left you the leadership of the network, you decided to attack me," and he explodes the Scorpion's head and after that explodes the heads of all his assistants. He says, "Fine, I decided to return to leading the network." And Johnny and Cassie at this time were celebrating their wedding. They'll use the money they took to continue their lives together, and that's it. That was all we had. A fun anime. Give it a 7.5 out of 10. Tell us your rating for the anime in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in a new video.